Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot onto sun-baked stone, somewhere deep in the heart of ancient Persia. The light is blinding, the sand sticks to your ankles, and the breeze, what little of it exists, feels like it's been freshly exhaled by a camel. But here's the strange thing. As you duck through a modest doorway, your skin suddenly cools. No buzzing fans, no humming AC units. And yet the air inside this ancient mud brick home feels surprisingly refreshing. You glance up. No modern gadgets, just cleverness carved in clay. You probably wouldn't survive a full summer day here, not without shade, hydration, and a firm grasp of how not to melt. But the ancient Persians, they made it look easy. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're listening right now, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this little sleepy history corner travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in Persia, somewhere between the 5th and 6th century BCE, give or take a decade or two. There's no map you trust, and no weather forecast to rely on. What you do have is a sun that rises fast and stays mean. The temperatures outside regularly breach 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And yet, when you step into certain homes, you feel relief, no magic, just engineering that works with nature instead of against it. The ancient Persians weren't just aware of their harsh climate, they embraced it. In fact, it became the foundation of one of their greatest architectural traditions, natural climate control. You reach a courtyard, shaded by a tall wall and an overhanging wooden trellis. Vines trail lazily above you. Somewhere there's a trickle of water. A breeze rolls in and, miraculously, doesn't feel like it's been dragged through an oven. You lean against the clay wall. It's cool to the touch, as if the sun never found it. That's by design. You see, Persian architecture leaned heavily into 3 tools: earth, shade, and water. These weren't just features, they were part of a philosophy. Rather than force the environment to bend, the Persians bent themselves, ever so slightly, to fit it. You follow a child carrying a clay jug. She dips it into a shallow flowing channel of water, clear, cold, and bubbling gently under a stone grate. This is a kanat, and you'll be seeing a lot more of it. For now, you just feel grateful for the cool mist rising from its surface. Historians still argue whether the earliest Persians were the first to channel underground water into cities using this method, or whether they inherited and refined it from earlier Mesopotamian engineers. Either way, they took it to extraordinary lengths. Some qanats stretch for miles, tapping mountain aquifers and bringing cold water to places where no stream dares to flow. At night, you lay on a flat rooftop and stare up at 1,000 stars. In this desert sky, everything feels eternal. But even under the open air, it's the design that makes your sleep comfortable. The thick mud brick walls absorb heat during the day and slowly release it at night. High ceilings let hot air rise away from sleeping bodies. Courtyards funnel breezes down into the home. The layout isn't random, it's thermal logic with a poetic twist. And then you see it, rising from the edge of the roof, a tall tower with openings on all sides. Inside, something stirs the air. It isn't mechanical, it isn't loud, but the air moves. This, dear friend, is where our story truly begins. You've just met your first wind catcher, and yes, it works exactly like it sounds. But we'll get to that soon. For now, you drift to sleep under the stars, grateful for the centuries of experimentation and clay layering that brought you this moment of gentle, engineered peace. Oh, and by the way, you still haven't found the ice house. The sun climbs again, and with it comes the kind of dry heat that could fry bread on a stone. But you're not worried. You're stepping back into that familiar Persian courtyard, where shade, silence, and clever engineering wait like old friends. Today, you start noticing the details, the ones your sleepy mind skimmed over last night. The walls aren't just tall, they're thick, several feet thick. Made from mud brick or adobe, These walls aren't random desert decor, they're insulation. During the day, they soak up heat like sponges. At night, they slowly let it go, keeping the inside temperature astonishingly stable. It's like living inside a giant, breathable thermos. You move slowly, like the locals, keeping your body shaded and your steps deliberate. The air outside hums with stillness, but inside these homes the movement of air becomes a kind of quiet music. It slides through narrow halls, moves beneath doors, and flows upward through vents you barely notice at first. Nothing forced, nothing loud. Just passive cooling, perfected centuries before eco-friendly became a marketing buzzword. At the centre of many homes is a house, a shallow pool reflecting light and bouncing humidity gently into the air. Sometimes square, sometimes round, it's more than decorative, it's functional. The water evaporates slowly, cooling the surrounding space and softening the dry desert breath. A single clay cup floats lazily on the surface, perhaps forgotten, perhaps left intentionally for guests like you. You crouch beside the house and dip your hand into the water. It's cold. Not just cooler than the air cold, spring cold. This pool is fed by that underground qanat you saw earlier. Some of these channels run 20, 30, even 50 kilometers underground. That's enough distance and depth to chill the water naturally as it journeys to your doorstep. You begin to appreciate the rhythm of Persian architecture. It's not rushed, it's a slow conversation between human comfort and natural law. The buildings here don't reject the desert, they outsmart it. And then you hear it, a gentle chugging sound. Someone's drawing water from a shaduf, a kind of hand-operated lift. A long wooden arm pivots on a post, hoisting a small bucket from a shallow well. The bucket swings and pours into a carved stone trough, which then feeds into another house. It's like watching a Rube Goldberg machine, made entirely from things found within walking distance. Historians still debate whether this specific water-lifting method originated in Persia or migrated from Egypt. The timeline's fuzzy, as it often is with ancient technology. What's clear is that wherever it came from, the Persians turned it into an art form. You stroll through the narrow streets of an old neighbourhood. Let's say this one's in Kashan. The alleyways are tight, the buildings close together. Not because of crowding, but because of climate control. Narrow lanes mean more shade. More walls mean more reflective surfaces. Even the streets themselves are designed to reduce heat. The wind snakes its way through these tight corridors, cooled by shadows, and occasionally redirected by well-placed barriers or trees. You duck under a low archway and find yourself in yet another courtyard. This one has a garden. Fig trees, pomegranate bushes, and a single vine climbing the wall with determined grace. Shade plus water equals growth. Even here, where rainfall is as rare as a quiet group text. And then you see it again. Rising up behind the garden wall, another wind catcher. This one's different. Taller, more ornate. Its openings are narrower, angled slightly to the north. Aha, that's not an accident. In Iran, the shomel, the northern wind, is the one you want. Cool, reliable, and polite enough to visit in the evenings. You lean back against a wall and let your eyes drift shut. You wonder what it would feel like to live here. Not just visit, but actually belong. To wake up each day with a full understanding of the wind's habits. To shape your home, not around what you own, but around what you know. And just as your mind begins to drift, a sudden thought snaps you back to attention. Where did they keep the ice? This is the desert. You haven't seen snow in weeks. And yet in some of these homes there's ice. You've heard whispers. The locals talk of something called a yakchal. Ice pit, they say. A place where frozen water survives the summer. It sounds impossible. But in ancient Persia, impossible is just another engineering challenge, waiting to be solved with clay, slope, and stubborn patience. You stand up. You're going to find one. But not too fast, you're still technically on vacation. You follow a dusty road out of the city, your sandals kicking up a soft cloud with every step. The sun has settled into its usual blistering rhythm, But you're undeterred. You're on a mission now to find this mysterious Yakchal, the ancient Persian ice house. It doesn't take long. On the horizon, rising like some half-buried spaceship, is a dome. Not the marble or gilded kind you'd see in palaces. This one's made of mud brick, rough and sun-bleached. But it's beautiful in its own way, both alien and ancient. You walk closer and begin to see the cleverness in its curves. This is no ordinary building. This is your desert refrigerator. The Yakchal, literally, ice pit, is an engineering marvel dating back over 2,000 years. From the outside, it looks like an oversized beehive, squat and massive, designed not for aesthetics but survival. Inside, there's a deep underground chamber, often more than 5 meters down, lined with special waterproof mortar called saruji. This mix of clay, sand, ash, goat's hair, and lime makes the walls not only waterproof, but heat resistant. Basically, desert-proof. You step inside. The air changes instantly. Cool, still, slightly damp. You descend a set of stone steps into the shadowed pit. It's chilly down here, even with the sun blazing outside. You run your fingers along the curved wall and feel the temperature drop, like you're sinking into a pocket of forgotten winter. You look around. It's empty now, of course. But once this entire space would have been filled with massive blocks of ice, harvested during frigid desert nights and stored here for use throughout the summer. Sometimes the ice came from nearby qanats, other times from shallow outdoor pools built beside the Yakchal. On especially cold nights in winter, water would freeze naturally in these shallow basins. By morning, workers would scrape the ice, carry it inside, and stack it layer by layer, insulating each layer with straw or sawdust. And the dome, that's not just for show. Its conical shape helps hot air rise and vent out, while the thick walls and underground storage reduce heat transfer. Some Yakchals could preserve ice for months into the heart of summer. You imagine sipping chilled pomegranate juice in the middle of July, and suddenly the Yakchal feels less like a relic and more like a miracle. Historians still debate exactly how widespread Yakchals were, or whether the ice they stored was used mostly for food, medicine, or ceremonial purposes. Some argue these structures were a sign of status. Only the wealthy could afford to build and maintain them. Others suggest they were communal, shared by neighbourhoods, or even entire villages. The truth might lie somewhere in between. You climb back into the sunlight, blinking as the brightness hits you full force. From this angle, the dome looks even more surreal, a reminder that humans have been stubbornly clever about comfort for a very long time. As you wander back toward the city, you start connecting the dots. Qanats bring cold water from underground. Wind catchers funnel breezes into your home. Mud brick walls buffer you from the sun's worst tantrums. And now, Yakchals gift you a cube of ice when your brain starts boiling. Together is not just a bunch of random tricks, it's a system, an ancient, cohesive strategy for staying cool in one of the planet's hottest climates. And it's still inspiring architects today. You pause near a roadside stand where an old man slices cucumber into a clay cup and douses it with vinegar and herbs. He waves you over, gestures for you to sit. You do, gratefully. He ladles water from a clay zir, another clever container designed to cool its contents through evaporation. The water is cold, refreshingly so. You take a sip and realise they didn't just build these cooling systems, they lived them. Every element of daily Persian life, from what they wore to how they built their neighbourhoods, was touched by the need to manage heat. It was never about luxury, it was about survival, executed with artistry, and just when you think you've seen every possible way ancient Persians beat the heat, the old man gestures again. This time, he points to a nearby roof, where cloth flutters lazily in the breeze. Bad gear, he mutters, smiling. You smile back. You know exactly what he means. Section 4, you squint up at the rooftop the old man just pointed to. At first glance, it's just another mud brick silhouette against the sky. But then you see it, a slender tower rising from the flat roofline, topped with open slats that face into the wind. Another badger, wind catcher, staring stoically into the horizon. This one's slimmer than the others you've seen. More decorative, with geometric patterns carved into the clay and painted tiles that glint faintly under the afternoon sun. You climb a nearby staircase slowly, careful not to disturb a sleeping cat curled in the shade. When you reach the roof, a gentle breeze brushes against your cheeks. You turn toward the wind catcher and suddenly feel it, not just wind but cool wind, descending from above. That's the magic of it. Inside, hidden from view, the wind catcher uses a series of vertical shafts and directional vanes to channel air downward into the home. Depending on where it's built, it might catch wind from one side or several. In Yazd, a city famed for its wind catchers, some towers are octagonal, 8 faces, each aligned to a potential wind direction. But what happens when there's no wind at all? Well, this is where things get even cleverer. Some wind catchers are connected directly to underground qanats. As warm air is drawn down the shaft and over the cold water below, it cools and loses its moisture. The heavier, denser air then sinks further into the house. Passive cooling becomes active circulation, all without a single moving part. Just pressure differences, smart design, and an instinctive understanding of physics long before thermodynamics had a name. You kneel beside the opening of the shaft and let your hand hover over it. The breeze isn't loud, but it's constant, soft as a sigh, cool as shaded stone. Somewhere inside, a series of clay partitions redirect the air like a labyrinth. It's not just air conditioning, it's architecture that breathes. Historians still argue whether wind catchers originated in Persia or were adapted from even older designs in Egypt or Mesopotamia. But no matter the birthplace, the Iranians took the idea and perfected it. They weren't just catching the wind, they were shaping it into a domestic tool, taming it like a trained falcon. You recline on a rolled-up rug and let the wind pass over you. The city hums below, muted voices, the clink of ceramic cups, a distant donkey braying like it just heard a bad joke. You let it all fade into the background. In the corner of the rooftop, you notice another trick. Rows of ceramic jars, their narrow necks designed to reduce evaporation. They sit in the shade, clustered like gossiping aunties, filled with drinking water, vinegar, or pickled vegetables. Their clay walls are porous. Evaporation cools the contents slowly, naturally. Everything up here seems perfectly suited to this climate. The roof isn't just for drying laundry, it's a living space, cool in the evening, peaceful at dusk. You imagine dinners held under the stars, the wind catcher whispering gently above, while someone strums a sitar-like tar nearby. From up here, the city reveals its logic. Streets run in alignment with wind patterns. Buildings huddle close not to hide, but to collaborate, each casting shade on the next, each helping to create a microclimate better than the sum of its parts. You spot a public cistern not far away, its domed roof peeking out between 2 taller homes. You make a mental note to visit it later. Those cisterns, called ab-anbars, aren't just water tanks. They're often paired with wind catchers too, using airflow to keep water fresh and cool. They say some were so cold you could float rose petals on the surface without them wilting. A local girl appears beside you with a tray of dates and a glass of thick, sweet sharbat, rosewater and syrup poured over crushed ice. She says nothing, just nods, sets it down, and leaves. You take a sip, and suddenly your mouth is cooler than it's been all day. You wonder what it must have been like to grow up here, never knowing air conditioning as we do, but never needing it either. Your home was already doing the work, built not to conquer the heat, but to coexist with it. And just when you're ready to drift again, a low bell sounds from the mosque below. It's not a call to prayer this time, it's the signal for the night market. You stretch, stand, and make your way back down the stairs, the wind catcher humming like a quiet lullaby behind you. You descend from the rooftop slowly, trailing one hand along the wall as you go. The wind catcher's breath follows you a few steps down, then fades like it's reluctantly letting you go, The narrow stairs empty into a shaded alley, its walls glowing amber in the dusk light. Somewhere in the distance, a flute plays a tune that refuses to resolve, floating, unfinished, like the breeze that never stops moving. Your feet carry you toward the night market, but before you arrive, another curiosity draws you off course. A garden, not the kind with manicured hedges or marble fountains, but something older, more purposeful. This is a Persian garden, and unlike anything you've seen before, it's not just beautiful, it's cool, literally. You pass through the gateway, an arch of brick and carved plaster, and step into a rectangle of calm. Gravel paths divide the space into perfect quarters, a design called Chaharbagh, the Four Gardens. In the centre, a narrow rill of water trickles past your sandals. It leads from a small pool, where reeds bend lazily in the wind. It's at least 10 degrees cooler in here. You feel it immediately. Persian gardens were never merely decorative. They were microclimate machines, engineered oases in the heart of desert cities. The trees provide shade, of course, but also help retain moisture in the air. The walls protect against dust storms. The water features, they're not just for aesthetics, they're active tools of temperature control. Evaporation from the pools and rills cools the air, especially at night. You take a seat under a pomegranate tree and watch the golden light ripple across the water. It's almost hypnotic, and then you realise you're not alone. This isn't a private garden. It's shared, a public space. Kids dart along the paths, their laughter echoing off the walls. An old man tends to a patch of herbs near the far end. Someone has brought tea, and small glasses clink faintly against a silver tray. And you, stranger that you are welcomed here without question. That's another thing Persian cooling culture got right. Community spaces designed for comfort. When heat affects everyone, relief becomes a public good. You glance at the walls, built with mud brick and adobe, thick as a bear's hug and twice as comforting. They radiate calm. During the day, they absorb heat slowly. At night, they release it just as slowly, smoothing out temperature swings like a lullaby that lasts till dawn. Their secret is thermal mass, something modern architects are still relearning. Historians still argue about the origins of the Shaharbagh design. Some say it mirrors the Quranic vision of paradise. Others suggest older Zoroastrian roots, where water and greenery were sacred symbols. Either way, it worked and spread. The same cooling garden layout appears in Mughal India, Moorish Spain, even the palaces of Ottoman Istanbul. You wander deeper into the greenery. Somewhere, someone's grilling eggplant over a small fire. The smoke curls up into a trellis thick with grapevines. You breathe it in, charcoal, sweet juice, damp earth. A reminder that cooling in Persia wasn't about gadgets. It was sensory. Smell, texture, taste, breeze. You find yourself staring at a low wall made entirely of mud and straw. Its rough surface alive with tiny cracks and cool to the touch. It's not permanent, but that's the point. These materials can be repaired, reshaped. They adapt with the seasons like skin, like memory. The light begins to fade, but the garden stays open. A few oil lamps flicker to life. You hear the gentle splash of someone refilling the central pool from a clay jar, the kind that cools itself through slow evaporation, like the ones you saw earlier. It's a quiet, patient system, running on gravity and time. You sit back against the trunk of the tree and close your eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, at least not yet. Just to absorb the breeze from the wind catchers overhead, the scent of mint and wet soil, the rhythmic tick of water across stone. It's a whole ecosystem of calm, hand-built over centuries, and you're lying right in the middle of it. This isn't just how ancient Persians cooled their homes, it's how they cooled their lives. Through shade, silence, slowness. A little boy runs past, chasing a runaway date. He trips, falls and laughs like the dirt was part of the game. His mother doesn't scold, just calls him to come help set the evening table. You can't hear what they're eating, but you can smell it. Herbs, yogurt, something pickled. The night air is thick now, Not with heat, but with softness. This garden, these walls, the wind, it's not just survival, it's comfort, pulled from the harshest environment with 1,000 small inventions. Each one humble, each one brilliant. You rise, stretch, and glance at the stars now winking into view. Somewhere beyond the trees, the night market still buzzes. But here, under the pomegranates, the world feels paused and wonderfully, deliciously cool. You leave the garden reluctantly, like peeling away from a dream, and follow the quiet flow of people toward the bazaar, the heart of any Persian city worth its salt, and the best place to see ancient cooling technology doing its job in real time. You might expect the market to be stuffy, crammed, maybe a little chaotic, and sure, it's busy. The voices bounce off the vaulted ceilings, the smell of spices dances around your nose, and the clink of coins is constant. But the heat, manageable. Even at this hour, when the sun has just dipped below the skyline and the residual warmth should still be baking the stones under your feet, the bazaar is surprisingly cool. You glance up. The secret lies in the ceiling. Above you, the roof of the bazaar is an architectural marvel. Domed, ribbed, punctuated by small high oculi, openings that act like pressure valves. Hot air rises, collects near the top of the dome, and gently escapes. Meanwhile, fresh air trickles in from carefully positioned vents and shaded alleys. It's a passive air exchange system, built centuries before we had fans and ducts and HVAC engineers in polos. You meander down an aisle, lined with copper pots and ceramic jugs, each more colourful than the last. The merchants fan themselves lazily, more out of habit than need. Every few metres, a clay water cooler sits by a pillar. Just a wide vessel, unglazed, porous, filled with clean drinking water. Anyone can help themselves. You do, and the water is cool, not refrigerator cold, but desert refreshing, if that makes sense. Near a spice stall, an older man leans back on a crate of dried limes and waves you over. He's slicing pieces of Bastani Sonati, a chewy, dense Persian ice cream made with saffron and rose water, often frozen using ancient ice pits called yakchuls. Yes, ice, in the desert. And here's where your mind starts to bend a little. Long before electricity, Persians had figured out how to store ice through the blazing summer. You walk with the man to the edge of the bazaar, where a slope leads to a domed structure that looks a bit like an oversized beehive. That's the yakchal, literally ice pit. Its thick walls, often made of special mud and camel hair plaster, insulate the inside like a thermos the size of a house. Inside, you'd find a deep chamber, maybe 20 feet down, lined with ice brought from the mountains in winter, or made locally by letting shallow pools of water freeze overnight. Once packed with straw and sealed properly, that ice could last well into summer. You step close to the thick wall and press your palm to it. Even now, at twilight, it's noticeably cool. The air around it carries a faint chill, like the ghost of snow clinging to memory. Historians still argue how efficient these early refrigeration systems really were. Some say the ice was symbolic, a luxury for the elite. Others insist that city-wide yakchuls supplied entire neighbourhoods, especially during festivals or heat waves. Either way, they remain one of the most impressive testaments to Persian climate control, managing not just heat, but cold, with nothing but geometry, gravity, and good insulation. You drift back into the bazaar, where the crowd has thickened but the air hasn't. The design makes sure of that. The lanes are narrow, shaded, and never aligned with the harshest sun angles. The materials, mud brick, stone, thick timber, absorb more heat than they reflect. And then there's the rhythm of life here, the siesta culture, the long evenings, the natural inclination to move slowly when the sun is high. The architecture supports it all. You pass a weaver working under a flickering oil lamp, his hands slow and practiced as he knots a new rug. He doesn't look up, but he does offer a comment. If you build the space right, he says, the space takes care of you. And really, That's the theme of the whole place. These are buildings that work with the climate, not against it. Nothing is trying to dominate the heat. There are no compressors roaring in the background. Just airflow, thermal mass, evaporation, the oldest tricks in the book. Wrapped in domes and courtyards and towers that catch the wind, like a song you can't stop humming. You let yourself get a little lost in the bazaar. That's part of the design too. It's a maze, yes, but a cool one. Each turn reveals something new. A stall of dried rosebuds, a cellar of antique coins, a boy asleep on a stack of woven mats, his foot twitching like he's chasing something in a dream. And you've just chased air across centuries and found it waiting for you here, in the heart of a market, in the sigh of a wind catcher, in the echo of ancient feet tracing these same stone floors. You pause beneath a skylight and take a deep breath. Cool, dry, perfectly aged. It's lazily through a cracked door. Then you see it. A squat little building with no windows, but one massive wind catcher rising from its roof like a sail caught in the night breeze. This isn't a house. It's a public bathhouse, a hammam. And yes, even a place built to produce steam has cooling secrets to share. You duck through the low entrance and find yourself in a frigidarium, a kind of waiting chamber, cool and dim, with benches along the walls. The temperature drop is immediate, a quiet relief. An attendant, barefooted and barely awake, nods you in. You leave your shoes by the door. Inside, the air is dense with heat and moisture, but it doesn't choke. Instead, it moves, pulled upward by hidden shafts, and vented out through the wind catcher overhead. That's the genius of Persian bathhouse architecture. Thermal zoning. Each room is part of a sequence, a gradient of temperature and purpose, from cold to warm to hot and back again, and all of it ventilated without a single fan. You step into the warm room, the tepidarium, where steam hangs like silk. The floor is warm underfoot, heated by hypercourse channels, subterranean tunnels that carry hot air from the furnace. You can hear the faint burble of running water, and still, even here, the bathhouse breathes. Tiny vents near the ceiling siphon the hottest air out, keeping things bearable. You're sweating, but not suffocating. A man pours water over smooth black stones, releasing a hiss and a fragrant cloud. Saffron, maybe, or eucalyptus. Another rubs fragrant clay over his arms. Gasol, a mineral-rich cleanser still used today. Everything about the bathhouse is deliberate, cyclical. Heating and cooling, opening and sealing, sweating and resting. It's a ritual as much as a rinse. Historians still argue about the precise health benefits of these ancient routines, whether they prolonged life or simply made it more pleasant. But no one denies their engineering brilliance. Heat was trapped where it was needed and bled away where it wasn't. A bathhouse in the desert could feel as temperate as a beachside spa, all without machines. You lie back on a warm stone slab and close your eyes. Water trickles somewhere nearby. Feet slap gently on wet tile. A whisper of cool air brushes your face from an upper vent. It's not the wind's fault you're sleepy. That's just how it's always been here. Air that lulls, not just chills. Eventually you rise, towel yourself off, and return to the frigidarium, where a small pool awaits. The water is not cold, but it is crisp. A final reset. You dip your fingers in, then your toes, then lower yourself in completely. Silence closes around you like velvet. You wonder how many people have floated in this same pool. Traders, soldiers, poets, midwives, cooling their bodies after desert journeys, washing dust from their feet, soaking in the soundless breath of well-designed space, centuries of sweat rinsed clean. You leave the bathhouse glowing like embers. Your skin still tingles from the heat, but your mind is clear, your body unburdened. Cooling here is not about one fixed temperature, it's a rhythm. A seasonal dialogue between inside and outside, hot and cold, body and air. You glance back at the wind catcher on the roof. It turns slowly, like it's nodding goodnight, and now you feel ready to sleep. But there's one more stop before dreams take hold: Courtyard House. You approach one of these homes just as a family is closing up for the night. An older man waves you inside with the ease of someone who's waved in travellers all his life. "Stay a while," he says. "You'll sleep better after tea." You enter through a narrow hallway called a darb, a feature designed not just for privacy but to minimise the rush of hot air from outside. The passage turns once, then twice, and suddenly opens into a courtyard that steals your breath. It's not big, maybe the size of a tennis court, but it's ringed by tall walls and the house itself forming a perfect thermal cocoon. In the centre, a rectangular reflecting pool, its still water catching the last glimmers of dusk. Around it grow cypress trees, orange blossoms, maybe even a pomegranate or two. Their leaves shimmer, not in wind, but in quiet coolness. You sit. A breeze meanders through, funnelled gently by the wind catchers above, and cooled further by the evaporation from the pool and garden. This isn't just a backyard, it's an air conditioning unit disguised as paradise. The family brings tea, steaming, fragrant with cardamom. It might seem strange to drink hot tea in warm air, but here's a trick from centuries past. Hot drinks stimulate your body's natural cooling mechanisms. The sweat you produce evaporates and cools you faster than cold drinks, which only chill your mouth. Smart, right? A young boy points upward. "Watch," he whispers. You tilt your head and see the movement, soft and slow. A curtain in an upper window flutters outward, then inward. The badgier, or wind catcher, is doing its job. The design is deceptively simple. A tall shaft open at the top catches even the faintest breeze and directs it downward. Some versions include internal baffles to guide airflow more precisely. Others channel air across a small indoor kanat-fed fountain to further cool it by evaporation. And here's where Persian brilliance shows again. If the outside air is hotter than inside, the system flips. Warm air inside the house rises and exits through the shaft, creating a vacuum that pulls cooler air in from shaded areas or underground vents. It's a self-regulating system, elegant in its silence. Historians still argue whether this passive cooling technique could rival modern AC in terms of comfort. But the fact remains, in cities like Yazd, where summer temps can break 100 degrees Fahrenheit, families lived comfortably for centuries, without electricity, just wind, water and wits. You lean back against a cushion. The walls around you are thick, made of adobe or sun-dried brick. During the day, they absorb heat slowly, keeping the interior cooler. At night, they release that stored warmth, maintaining a gentle thermal balance. This phenomenon is called thermal lag, and it's one of the many small architectural tricks that make a big difference. Nearby, an old woman hums softly while peeling cucumbers. Another family member sprinkles water lightly over the stone floor, a simple ritual called ab-pashi. The evaporating water cools the ground and adds a soft humidity to the air. Even the act of slowing down, of preparing for rest, is part of the cooling process. You lie back fully now, eyes half-lidded. The scent of jasmine, the soft gurgle of the fountain, a breeze that feels like it's travelled centuries just to reach your skin. And in that moment, you realise, cooling here isn't a button you press or a machine you dread maintaining. It's a relationship between you and your space, the seasons, the air itself. Persian architecture doesn't battle the climate, it converses with it, and so do you now, breathing with the courtyard, syncing your pulse to its rhythms, way to verdant valleys and the foothills of towering mountains. Here, in places like Kashan and Isfahan, wind catchers take on new forms, some tall and slender, others squat and boxy, but all built with the same intent: to catch any stray breeze and deliver it cool and welcome. One particularly clever variation you encounter is the multi-directional badgir, with openings facing all 4 cardinal points. This design maximises airflow regardless of wind direction. Ingenious, isn't it? And sometimes the wind catchers are paired with kanats, underground water tunnels that deliver cool air from deep beneath the earth. Imagine walking through a dry, sun-baked street and suddenly stepping into a shaded alley where the air feels like a cool whisper on your skin. That's the Qanat effect, air chilled by subterranean water trickling through ancient channels, carried gently upward by the wind catcher's suction. Not everyone agrees on how widespread the use of qanats combined with wind catchers really was. Some historians suggest this pairing was common in cities with access to underground water, while others argue it was a luxury reserved for the wealthy. As you wander, you notice the home's thick walls again, built from kesht, sun-dried mud bricks with insulating properties. It's impressive how such humble materials create natural thermal mass that cools interiors during scorching days and retains warmth after sunset. You pause to sip on a cooling sherbet, made from rosewater and lemon juice. The sweet tart taste refreshes your palate as you watch shadows lengthen. Here in the eastern Persian heartland, the ancient techniques blend with local climate nuances. Some houses have courtyards dotted with fruit trees, pomegranates, figs and almonds that not only offer shade but also add humidity, subtly lowering the temperature. You recall the bathhouse's steam and the market's airflow, now seeing them as pieces in a larger puzzle. Persian architectural cooling is holistic, integrating water, wind, earth and vegetation. Even the layout of neighbourhoods contributes. Narrow winding streets block direct sun, while open plazas serve as heat sinks, radiating cooler air. It's a lifestyle built around patience and observation, not instant gratification. And as you rest on a stone bench, you feel how this slow, deliberate approach still speaks to modern needs, reminding us that comfort doesn't always require complexity. You smile to yourself, wondering how many generations have experienced this same quiet coolness, their evenings punctuated by the gentle sigh of wind through ancient towers. Climate is brutally dry and hot, and yet the city's residents have thrived for centuries using these passive cooling techniques. The wind catchers here aren't just functional, they're often beautifully decorated with intricate brickwork and ornamental plaster, proof that Persian craftsmanship was as much about art as utility. You stroll through a narrow alley, the walls close enough to touch, but the air surprisingly fresh. The wind catchers catch whatever breeze there is and funnel it down, refreshing the homes below. Sometimes, the airflow even passes over underground pools or channels carrying cool water, further dropping the temperature by evaporation. You stop to admire one such home, where the Badgier's internal structure is revealed through a small opening. Inside, wooden baffles and plaster channels guide the air precisely, ensuring it reaches every corner of the house. This intricate design reflects a deep understanding of airflow dynamics, long before the days of computational fluid dynamics or HVAC engineers. But it's not just the architecture that keeps Yazd cool. The city's urban planning also plays a role. Buildings cluster tightly to provide shade, while courtyards offer cool retreats filled with plants and water. These green spaces not only cool the air, but create a calming ambience, enhancing the slow-paced lifestyle. There's an interesting debate among historians about whether these methods were designed primarily for comfort or had spiritual significance. Some argue the cool, quiet spaces promoted reflection and meditation, essential for the city's religious communities. Others suggest the designs evolved purely out of necessity. You pause to sip a glass of sharbat, sweet, floral, and served chilled. The contrast between the arid environment and the refreshing drink perfectly encapsulates Yazd's delicate balance between nature and human ingenuity. As you rest in the shade of a courtyard, the gentle hum of the wind catcher above creates a soothing rhythm, lulling you towards sleep. It's clear that in Yazd cooling is more than a technical challenge. It's an art form, a dance between desert, wind and human creativity. Workers and servants who lived nearby, struggling through blistering days without modern cooling. Some scholars suggest they employed early versions of wind catchers or cleverly designed courtyards to ease the heat. You can almost see them retreating to shaded alcoves or sitting beside shallow pools where water evaporates slowly, creating a subtle chill. Historians still debate the extent to which Achaemenid architects integrated passive cooling into their monumental designs. While the palaces were built for prestige, it's possible that functional comfort was a silent companion to splendour. Nearby you spot fragments of an ancient qanat, the underground aqueduct system that carried cool water from distant mountains into the arid plains. These tunnels weren't just engineering marvels, they were lifelines sustaining agriculture, cities and cooling systems alike. Picture water flowing silently through the qanat, its cool breath rising through wells and channels, meeting the warm desert air above. The interaction of water and wind, stone and sun, created a dynamic environment that ancient Persians learned to read and respect. You recall how wind catchers often work in tandem with qanats, channeling air over the cool water to reduce indoor temperatures. It's a synergy of natural elements, ingeniously harnessed. In this sun-baked landscape, every shade, every breeze, every trick of airflow mattered deeply. It's a reminder that human comfort has always been a dialogue with nature's rhythms, rather than a battle against them. As you walk among the ruins, the heat hums softly around you, but the faint memory of cooling traditions clings to the stones. Echoes of ancient ingenuity in the desert's embrace, which is built taller and narrower, designed to catch breezes off the water and funnel them down into shaded interiors. Unlike the desert badgers, these are sometimes equipped with water basins at their base, shallow pools designed to cool the air through evaporation before it reaches the living spaces. The streets here are narrow and winding, with walls painted white or pale colours to reflect the sun's harsh glare. You notice that many homes have thick, mud-plastered walls, but these are often coated with a salty glaze that resists humidity and decay. A quirky local custom catches your attention: the use of hanging bunches of dried herbs and flowers near doorways, believed to purify the air and provide a cooling scent. Historians debate whether this was primarily practical or more cultural symbolism, but the effect is undeniably pleasant. You sit on a wooden bench near a bustling marketplace and sip on cool rosewater infused with mint, letting the flavours refresh your senses. The mingling smells of spices and sea salt mingle with the cool breezes brought by the wind catchers, creating a sensory experience that's part comfort, part ritual. You reflect on how these adaptations show the Persian ability to customize their cooling techniques to diverse environments, from desert interiors to humid coasts. It's a testament to a culture deeply in tune with place and climate, finding solutions that are as elegant as they are effective. As you watch a family gather in a courtyard for an evening meal, cooled by the soft sighs of the wind catcher above, you realise this is more than architecture. It's a way of life, shaped by nature and time. Gain heat in winter and prevent humidity build up in summer. The badgers here may be shorter, focusing less on catching wind and more on venting warm, moist air from inside. You observe how the homes incorporate wide eaves and overhangs, providing shade from the sun and shelter from rain, while courtyards often feature ponds with floating lotus flowers, combining beauty and cooling through evaporation. Interestingly, many of these homes use chimneys not only to vent smoke, but also as part of the air circulation system, enhancing cross-ventilation that helps keep interiors fresh year-round. Historians still discuss how early Persian architects balanced these needs, often blurring the lines between heating and cooling in a single structure. You wander into a small village where you witness an old ritual, villagers sprinkling water on earthen floors in the evenings. This simple act cools the surface and, combined with gentle breezes, creates a comforting, humid microclimate, perfect for restful sleep. You recall earlier stories of the desert and coastal adaptations, realizing how Persian ingenuity spans an astonishing range of environments. This versatility is why their traditional architecture feels timeless, responsive, adaptable, and deeply connected to nature's cues. As night falls, the air cools gently. You find a quiet spot in a courtyard, feeling the delicate balance of warmth, moisture, and airflow. Here in the heart of the mountains, the ancient wisdom of cooling techniques whispers softly, inviting you to rest. Filled with the scent of jasmine and the quiet murmur of water trickling from a fountain. Above, the wind catcher hums softly, drawing cool air down into the gathering. It's said that these cooling techniques helped foster long conversations and peaceful nights, supporting the Persian love of poetry, music, and reflection. Historians still argue whether the design was intentionally crafted to enhance social rituals or simply a fortunate byproduct of practical architecture. One quirky fact: some wind catchers were designed to amplify sounds of nature, like birdsong or water, creating an almost meditative ambience. Imagine falling asleep, not just to cool air, but to a gentle symphony crafted by the house itself. In addition to homes, these techniques influenced public spaces like bazaars and caravanserais, where merchants and travellers could find respite from the heat. The combination of shaded arcades, courtyards, and wind catchers made these hubs bustling yet bearable under the desert sun. You also reflect on how these ancient practices compare to modern air conditioning, a technology often criticised for its environmental impact. The Persian methods relied on passive cooling, zero energy, and beautiful integration with the landscape. A reminder that sometimes old wisdom holds the key to sustainable comfort. As you sip a final cup of tea, warmed by the fading sun, you appreciate the thoughtful balance of culture, climate, and community that ancient Persian architecture embodies. Walled homes. In some contemporary projects, wind catchers are combined with solar chimneys or geothermal cooling, bridging ancient wisdom and modern science. You might chuckle at the contrast, from clay towers in desert towns to sleek glass buildings with fancy machines humming away. Yet the goal remains the same: comfort, rest, and peace in the face of a relentless sun. Historians still debate how much these techniques spread beyond Persia's borders and to what extent they influenced other cultures. But one thing is clear: the Persian wind catcher is a marvel of human ingenuity, a testament to observation, patience, and respect for nature. As you settle into your own space tonight, maybe you'll hear the faintest echo of those desert breezes, the quiet sigh of air passing through a wind catcher's fluted walls. It's a gentle reminder that even in the harshest climates, there's a way to find coolness and calm. So, whether you're battling summer heat or simply longing for a softer, slower pace, ancient Persia offers a timeless lesson. Sometimes the best solutions are those that work quietly, gracefully, and with a touch of poetry. Now let the story fade gently, like the desert twilight, as you drift off in cool, peaceful sleep. Word count 1061. Wind down. The sun has set on our journey through the ancient Persian art of cooling. Let your breath slow as the warmth of the day softens into the cool embrace of evening. Imagine the gentle sigh of the wind catcher above, the faint trickle of water in the courtyard, the rustle of leaves stirred by a breeze that has travelled centuries to reach you. There is a quiet wisdom here in how the ancients listened to nature's rhythms, crafting homes that breathe with the earth and sky. No hum of machines, no rush of air from vents, just a gentle dance of wind and water, stone and sun. Allow this calm to settle deep within you. Your body feels lighter, your mind quieter. The desert's timeless breath carries you away, cradling you softly as the night wraps around your dreams. Sleep well, knowing that comfort need not be complicated. Sometimes it is simply a matter of catching the right breeze. End of script. Sweet dreams.